something for your audience is the hard money.
Right.
Definitely.
Totally.
There are a lot of companies or escrow officers where hard money is a dirty word.
Why is that?
Yeah. Why
Why
that
is hard
hesitation?
money a dirty word?
It's probably fear, an ultra-conservative perspective if you're dealing with a title company that's turning it away. So I can't speak for everyone.
Right.
They don't really want to touch it. You know, it's kind of foreign to them.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many different obstacles that come into play. It's
Yep.
not like a set cookie cutter X equals Y
Yeah,
equals
yeah,
Z kind
right.
of a situation. But that's one of the things that I really enjoy about it.
Welcome to the Deals and Aloha podcast, where we talk about real estate deals, hope to leave a lasting impact on our audience, and of course, spread aloha. Please follow us, you guys, at Come Hawaiian Tristan on all social media platforms. Let's go.
Let's go. So today is a super special and lucky day. It's a little bit different from our normal structure, but today we have our friend and escrow agent, best in Hawaii, Pam Sato from Title Guarantee. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so we're just gonna kind of talk about your story and I think get really educational on what a lot of people think they know about escrow, the nitty gritty that doesn't really get talked about and they don't teach you.
Right.
She's like, oh no, what are you talking about?
I know. What are you guys going to ask me? But to start out just a little bit, Pam has been, I would say, a member of our team from the beginning.
Day one, for sure. Yeah.
There is no other escrow officer like her
Nope.
on Oahu. I mean, honestly, it's just been a pleasure working with you, and we're honored to have you here. I want to know, like, what was your story getting into real estate? Like, how did that even happen?
I kind of just fell into it like most people.
Yeah.
I feel like the average person doesn't really know what escrow is, have never heard of an escrow officer before. So basically, I was in a position where I was looking for my next career move. I had been with Bank of Hawaii for 5 years, kind of in between. One of my clients actually recruited me to be an operations manager for a small company. It wasn't quite the right fit, so I needed to find something. And one of my Calabash aunties, who had known me for a long time, said, you should consider going into real estate. So I said, okay. So I answered an ad in the paper.
No way.
What? Really?
Really? That's
An
cool.
office management position. So a license wasn't required, with a really small boutique real estate company, Karambi Realty.
Oh.
And through working with Karan, I learned a lot about being a businesswoman. You know, it's a business, it's a woman-owned company, local.
Oh, nice.
And she really showed me a lot about the next level, and a lot of examples of how I wanted to be, things I wanted for myself. So I started off as an office manager. I just learned escrow transaction coordination from the real estate side. I got my license. I never actually actively sold anything,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
I
so
was
you
just more
did-
on the back end.
That's awesome.
So I did have my license,
Wow.
and then eventually she made me an operations director where I was kind of like running things for the company for her.
Yeah.
And at the same time, a title company that we worked with was recruiting me hard. They recruited me for over a year.
Wow.
That's cool.
So I decided, okay, do I want to continue with a really small company? I mean, you can see the ceiling
Yeah.
is there, and I wasn't going to quite get to where I wanted to be in life. You know, I'm in my early 30s. I still have a long ways to go.
Right.
And the company that recruited me was First American Title.
Okay.
Huge company.
Humongous.
Great reputation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Amazing benefits.
Right.
You know, all the things that you're looking for if you're not an independent
Right.
person, right?
Yeah.
I made the leap. I took the plunge.
Yeah.
I realized from day one, I know absolutely nothing about escrow. Everything I thought I knew about escrow, I know nothing about escrow.
Well, you moved into
yeah.
a completely
Yeah.
different arena. Like you knew of
Yeah.
it from one side, and now you went
Exactly.
into the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I think that gets missed a lot because there are so many people who they know the contract from one end. They don't really understand what escrow function is, what we have to go through, how it ties in with title, and what exactly are the little innuendos and the little processes that we have to go through just to close a transaction. So yeah, I got thrown in to one of
Thrown into the
The
fire.
deep end. Yeah.
thrown in, and not just thrown in. I mean, I started month end, which is traditionally everybody's busiest time for closing, on the busiest escrow officer's desk.
Wow.
And by busiest, I mean like he would produce probably about 3 times your average escrow officer.
Crazy.
Yeah. Learned a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
I'm sure.
But I mean, you have to take the time. You have to ask the questions. It was a lot of long hours of literally just sitting there and just observing him.
Yeah.
But it was something that I knew I really wanted to pursue. So I was willing to put in the time.
Yeah.
And so 5 years I was with him.
Oh wow.
And then I got promoted to escrow officer. And then eventually he left shortly after, actually.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
So we had moved to another branch. They opened up a brand new branch. He left about 3 months after. And basically I just hit the ground running.
You took over his spot, kind of?
It wasn't necessarily like they handed it to me. I
Yeah.
had to work for it.
Yeah.
I had to earn every
Love that.
single one.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful because you know how they always say everything happens in time. If it's the right time, it's going to happen. And
Yeah.
I just had to be patient. And everything just kind of fell into place.
That's so cool. That's so cool. So let's unpack a little bit of that. I have a question
Sure.
for the banking world. So that's where you kind of started. Were the skills that you learned in banking, did they translate it all to escrow? And like, if they did, what were they? If they didn't, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's a little bit that I do tap onto or tap into knowledge-wise because I have a better understanding of how the banking system works, how long it usually takes on average for checks to clear, which is really important when you're in escrow,
Yeah.
and how it works nationwide. And then a little bit more of the behind-the-scenes ops-wise of the banking world. So, for example, proceeds. We have a trust sale. I can tell the client if they don't already have a trust account established, what they're going to need, what the bank 9 times out of 10 is going to ask for. That's just one example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it gives you some like intimate knowledge on the banking process that you
Yeah.
then in turn can like show the client, right? Like
Yeah.
prepare them for what's going to happen.
Prepare them,
Yeah,
like
that's
with
cool.
wires,
All that.
I know 9 times out of 10 they're gonna want you to be there in person, or in some cases with smaller institutions, if they know you, they'll make an exception. So I tap into it pretty regularly, depending on different situations, on how to help guide them so that we can close successfully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that because it's a lot of the stuff that you know now they don't teach you in school. They don't teach you anything about the banking system, how money works, the financial, how financial institutions run, how to write a check, how to send a wire, how to balance a bank account. They really don't.
No,
They don't,
Not at
yeah.
all.
And so you gained a lot of skills and then transferred it over to your new, which I'm sure was helpful. Because could you imagine if nothing, you were like starting from scratch and none of your prior skills were applicable in your new scope of work? Like that would be hard.
Yeah. Super hard. So I guess you prove your worth, right, at First American. That's basically what it was when that guy left, and you like earned your way into that position. And so I guess just for people that are listening, because this is like a very interesting podcast to me. I told Tristan, I was like,
he's like, I have so many
I'm so
questions.
excited because you're right. Not a lot of people understand escrow or know anything about it. So we have a lot of new investors that listen to the podcast.
Yep.
What the heck
Awesome.
is escrow?
Good question. I'm redefining that on a daily basis, I would say.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you just take it from the far end version. It's basically we're helping two different parties complete a transaction. So basically, it's an exchange for money for title, clear title. That's the gist of it, I would say.
The simplest form of
The simplest form. So basically, we want to make sure that the money is on the table, all the parties are satisfied, all of the terms of the contract have been met to both sides' satisfaction. So we're not there to be judge and jury. We're following the buyer and seller and just asking them for confirmation every step of the way. In turn, we're reviewing title. We're making sure if there's anything on there that's past due or has to be cleared, we're making sure that that's happening. So that by the time we're at the table ready to sign, everything is already ready to go. And it's just a matter of making sure we get the funding in so that we can record the deed and then we disperse at the same time.
Love
Essentially, that's the basics of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
There's
Right.
so much more.
Yeah,
I
there's
know.
so
Yeah.
much more.
We could probably have a podcast on each
That would be
individual
like,
thing.
like a docu-series.
Yeah.
We should do that.
Oh.
That would
I
be
know.
really, really
Break
cool.
that down. That might be super helpful.
Um,
Oh no, I'll just keep asking questions. So you
No,
don't
I
ask
love
something.
that. But
Yeah.
okay, so you are an escrow officer, so you
Yes.
primarily work on the escrow side as that like third party, making sure that everything is moving according to buyer and seller standards.
Correct.
And then you mentioned title. Title is making sure what? What is title? A lot of people think it's one and the same.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not.
Actually different. So I think a lot of people may not be aware that you can actually have escrow and title in two completely different companies. It doesn't happen very often. It's a lot smoother if you go with the same company.
Right,
of
right.
course.
Yeah.
So title basically will do all of the research. They
Okay.
do all of the research. They will present a title report from a title insurance company perspective. And just keep in mind that word, insurance. They're going to do whatever they need to protect their own okoles, right? Just like homeowners insurance, car insurance. They're going to basically rate, is this high risk or not? Do we need to address it or can we just go ahead and not show it? They're going to make that determination at that time. Anything that they're showing on the title report that we need to address, that's for the escrow officer to communicate with the parties to obtain whatever information can help to satisfy, clear, substantiate, whatever it is, to get that item either cleared or paid off through escrow and released at the end. So that's the gist of it.
Yeah.
The other side of title has to do with the fact that a lot of times the buyers are getting financing,
Right.
So whether it's conventional financing with your traditional banks, hard money lenders, and private financing. So I think something for your audience is the hard money.
Right.
Definitely.
Totally.
There are a lot of companies or escrow officers where hard money is a dirty word.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
even want to touch it. They're
Yeah.
afraid of it. They would much rather just send them somewhere else.
Why is that?
Yeah. Why
Why
that
is hard
hesitation?
money a dirty word?
I'm going to say, honestly, it's probably fear, an ultra conservative perspective if you're dealing with the title company that's turning it away. And just because I think in the past decade, for example, there's been enough business out there where a lot of them can pick and choose.
Got it.
So if I have to take the time to learn this new thing, struggle with title to get it approved, it's much easier for me to push it somewhere else.
Yeah.
In the meantime, all of that time and energy can be spent on closing 5 other transactions.
That are easy and traditional.
Better for my wallet.
Yep.
A lot less stress.
Yeah.
It's something I can do with my eyes closed. And I think that's why a lot of escrow officers, I can't speak for everyone.
Right.
They don't really want to touch it. You know, it's kind of foreign to them.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an REO or
Yeah.
foreclosure. It's foreign, you know, and every transaction is a different learning experience because there's, you know, a variety of different hard money lenders. There's situations with title itself, the buyers.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many different obstacles that come into play. It's
Yep.
not like a set cookie cutter X equals Y
Yeah,
equals
yeah,
Z kind
right.
of a situation.
Yeah.
So, but that's one of the things that I really enjoy about it is I find it challenging. I learn new things all the time. And I find it really gratifying, you know, when we are able to figure out how to make it work.
You reached the finish line. You found the
yes,
solution.
yeah.
You were able to facilitate a win-win for both parties.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's where what feeds my fire
Love that.
is being able to help. And one of the reasons why I moved over to Title Guarantee is when they recruited me, I said, hey, I have this desk that I'm coming over with. We have to make sure that we're going to be able to take care of my clients because they have nowhere else to go.
Right.
Exactly.
So I wouldn't make the move without their basically guarantee that they were going to figure out a way how to make it work because prior to my arrival,
Nope.
they were one of the ones that weren't
That
touching
didn't.
hard
Yeah.
money.
Right.
You know, they weren't really sure what it involved, you know. So, but they were willing to work with me on it.
I love that.
You know, it's still a learning experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've allowed me to establish my team. We're essentially our own department. Really, that's what we are. Like you have projects, you have commercial, you have residential, and then there's us. We're
Investor.
essentially
Yeah. What
our
are
own-
you?
yeah.
What do they call
Yeah.
you?
Residential investments.
I love
guess.
it.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah.
But it's really nice because I can't explain the feeling I get building relationships with you two. A lot of the Hawaii investors, we have this mohana.
Yeah.
You've developed this culture where everybody pretty much knows everyone.
Yep.
We help each other out.
Yep.
We refer.
Yeah.
We offer guidance. There's lots of mentorships. There's partnerships. I see
Tons.
you guys partnering up
Yeah.
all the
Yep.
time,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
you're assigning or
Yeah.
wholesaling to one another.
Yep.
It's such a good feeling, and I am just so honored. I feel blessed every day,
To be
honestly,
a part of it.
to be a part of it.
That's
Yeah.
so cool.
Like
Yeah.
I never thought when I got into this, I would end up here. But I trust,
Yeah.
and you just go with it, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I absolutely love that.
Pam's got us crying over here.
But no, it's so cool because I think that's one of the things. Like, yes, you're an excellent escrow officer, and like we knew that and heard that about you, right? And that's kind of what drew us to you. But then when we got to know you, we realized that
Icing on the
you're-
cake.
right? You're an even better person, right? And so being able to meet someone and work with someone who shares our same energy, our same language, our same mindset, right? Like that's the best of both worlds, right? So we're blessed just as much,
Oh
if
my
not
gosh.
more. Totally.
The investor investment community here in Hawaii is better and able to do what we do because you're a part of it. And it's so critical. And if anyone's not using Pam, y'all are stupid. You need to be, because you really do make transactions easier. Because as you said, just the example of hard money and how not all are created equal, and there's different hoops that you have to jump through, and then you're almost an advocate to make sure that gets done. You make it easier for us as the buyers or the sellers, whatever it is, to get a transaction done, which in turn perpetuates money throughout the community.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, and it's that, and like another thing, like you said earlier, we're problem solvers, right? You like to help people, and so that's the same thing that we love to do. But
Exactly.
like
Yes.
sometimes we can only take it so far,
Yeah.
right? And then
Yeah.
we have you to pass the baton to,
Yeah.
and you share that same mindset and the same goal as we do. That's why I call you a teammate, right? And then you take it to the finish line.
Yeah,
And that's so
exactly.
important, because I don't think that investors understand quite often how important that relationship with an escrow officer is, a title company is. So, I mean, it's something that if you don't know, you need to figure out. Like, I feel like without a good escrow officer on your team, you're at a disadvantage. Totally at a disadvantage.
Couldn't have said it better. You're absolutely right. You're a critical component to us as investors being able to do what we do, which is buy and sell real estate. You know?
Yeah.
So, question again. When you got into this field, were you always working with investors?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Oh.
And,
So
and
how
how
did
did
that-
that evolution take place?
Yeah.
That's a great question. It's kind of random.
Yeah.
So there was someone locally who was an investor. He was actually also a mentor. He had a formal class. My understanding is that he walked into our lobby and he chose me based off of my picture on my business card.
Wow.
Not lying.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And they called me up front. He introduced himself. I had no idea who he was.
Yeah.
I really didn't know, what the investor realm was about. I mean, I had worked with a couple flippers
Yeah.
before, but it's just like one,
Onesie, twosies.
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So our relationship kind of grew from there. Through that, I met a lot of investors who are still around
Yeah.
Yeah.
locally. They're big players.
Yeah.
One of them actually started a company that does hard money
Yeah.
here in
Right.
Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah. Corey.
Yeah.
Corey, yes.
Corey. Yeah. We love Corey. Corey's been on the
Yes.
podcast. So
Yeah.
shout out Keiko.
Yes, Keiko. And it's just, I can't explain
Yeah.
how I literally just fell into this and I just embraced it.
Yeah.
I was just flying blindly pretty much, but like, hey, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's how it ended
Yeah,
up.
that's cool.
So he
That's
just
super cool.
walked into your office and was like, I have a lot of
Yes.
files. I have a lot of properties I buy and sell. This is how I do it. I want you to handle them?
Yes, basically.
Yeah.
I had no idea who he was. I wasn't heavily on social media at the time.
Right.
And, we did our first onesie, twosies together. And then from there, I spoke at a couple of his mentorship classes. So I developed relationship with some of his mentees
Yeah.
or people who just took the class.
Yeah.
And it just kind of took off.
Went
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Isn't it funny how God and the universe works? Is how He just brings things to you.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And it's all
Yes.
in the right timing.
Yes. Yeah.
I love the fact that you said that you embraced it, though, because I think oftentimes in life, there's things that are right in front of us that are like literally slapping us in the face. But if we're not ready and willing to actually embrace those opportunities and run with them, then we don't end up doing it. You know what I
Well,
mean?
and
So-
you're like
Yeah.
essentially turning down the blessing that's right in front of you.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
So you were at First American. Where did you?
How long were you there? And then what happened?
Yeah, where did you go after that?
I was with First American for a little over 10 years.
Oh, wow. A long time. Yeah.
Yeah,
My plan was to actually retire with them.
Oh,
I'm very,
nice.
very loyal.
yeah,
In the meantime, I mean, obviously, there's companies that are always in your ear, recruiting you hard.
Yeah.
I would always just not entertain.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
I just wanted to focus on growing my business, and just staying with First American. But there are things that were happening. I noticed some changes internally. You know, a lot of times with a national company, they're not there on the ground level. They don't know what's going on. Hawaii, although Hawaii is huge, it's small on a national scale.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yep.
They don't need to cater to everyone. And I was beginning to feel like they were going in a direction that was not necessarily what I was in agreement with. It was just, I wasn't feeling it anymore. It didn't feel like home.
You're right.
In the meantime, there was an opportunity for a younger company. First Hawaii Title. Will
That's where we
Tanaka
met you.
was recruiting me
First
super
Hawaii.
hard.
That's where we met you.
Yeah,
Yes,
first
Yeah.
Hawaii.
yeah. And I don't know if you guys remember Will Tanaka. You got to meet him, right?
I
Yes.
think, yep.
He is an amazing leader. Just always so positive, hands-on kind of a leader. Just
Yeah.
willing to do, roll up his sleeves, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done stuff for me, like go pick up docs,
What?
go run to the bank for me. Like
That's unheard of.
he's the company president,
Yeah,
and
like-
he's willing to just do whatever it took.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And that inspired me.
Yeah.
So I decided to take the plunge, and I made the move.
I
And
Yeah.
love that.
That's super cool.
So first Hawaii, how long were you there?
not too long, unfortunately. There were things that were happening again.
Yeah.
It's a privately owned company, and they're primarily based in Idaho. A lot of the company funds were going to vamp up Idaho and California and Washington, and they were neglecting Hawaii.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Hawaii was the revenue generator for the entire company.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a sour feeling.
Yeah.
And you have people from the mainland
Yeah.
coming in trying to tell Hawaii people that they know better.
Right.
And sorry to put that out there,
Yeah.
but
No. It's true. That
It's-
never works.
I
Speak
mean,
your truth. Yeah.
it's frustrating,
Yeah.
you know? It's like, you know, in your industry, if
Yep.
you have like someone who's done a lot of transactions on the mainland and they come into Hawaii and they think they know everything, and you're like, no, I'm sorry, Hawaii is a completely different animal.
Yeah.
When you come to Hawaii, if you think you know real estate, you know very little. You will soon learn our system is very difficult to work with.
Yeah.
We already have a lot of obstacles in place that don't exist in other states.
Yep.
We're a highly attorney driven state.
Yep. Yep.
Our real estate or our realtor per capita, attorney per capita is probably one of the highest in the
Highest.
nation.
Yeah.
So it's difficult, you know, and we're super customer service oriented because we have a concentrated market. So there's a lot of things that we have to do
Yep.
just to compete.
Yeah.
You know,
Totally.
we have to offer notary services. We have to be able to do things to cater that, you know, the mainland operations
They don't have to
They
do.
don't have
frowned
to do 'em.
upon. You know,
Yeah.
in California, for example, you're capped at $5 per quarter, I think, for taking someone out. And I'm just like, in Hawaii, that's not even going to get you a Starbucks.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, like
Yes.
it's you have to look at the market
Yeah.
and the reasoning behind why we do things the way we do.
Us as investors, a lot of the times we have to go to the mainland to learn how to do a lot of the things that we do here. But a lot of the things that work in Arizona, the Midwest, California, wherever it is, it doesn't work
It
here.
doesn't translate.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah.
our culture, our way of living, how we communicate with one another, business, everything is
Yeah.
so different, and people genuinely don't understand. So when he and I go to these conferences, and you know, they're like, "Well, what are you doing? And are you doing this? And what are you doing with that?" And it's like, "Oh, just send the contract over email." It's like it doesn't work.
No, you
It
have
is-
to like
They
walk
want
face to face.
they want to touch.
They
They
wanna-
want to feel. They want to know where you went to high school.
They
What's
want to
your
know
last
who your
name.
family is.
They
They
wanna
want
know, yeah, like-
They
It's
want to know
different.
all the things. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what I'm hearing from you is that it's applicable in any type of work. Hawaii is just a different breed. It's a different
Yeah.
world. We don't replicate
No.
the upper.
But-
four-
48.
yeah.
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 And it's one of the reasons why we're so special.
Yeah.
Because we're unique. And hopefully we can maintain that for the next generations to
Yeah.
come, because that's part of our beauty.
Right.
I feel.
Yeah,
You know?
totally.
Well, that's
Totally.
the draw that people love about Hawaii. Yeah, it's portrayed in this very beachy island fever, right? This tourist vibe, but that's genuinely once people get here, that's not what attracts them to Hawaii. It's the people, it's the
It is.
culture. We were
Yes.
just having this conversation yesterday.
Yep.
How unique and special Hawaii is, and how we have to protect it, and we're doing
Yes.
that in our own way. You know,
Yes. People over profits.
always.
Always.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
I
that.
mean, not that we only want to cater to locals, but we want to make sure that local families can stay here.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't want to be here like 30 years from now if I'm still here.
Yes,
You'll
you
still be
will
here.
still be here.
And, it looks like the mainland.
Yeah.
Don't want that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can go to the mainland for that.
Exactly.
Exactly. I
I
mean,
know.
that's like always the catch-22, right? Like people want to come to Hawaii because of the people and the experiences they have, and then they
Yes.
want to move here, right? And then they come to Hawaii, and then they want to change things, and they're changing things that make it special
is.
and why they wanted to come in the first place. Like that literally is what happened to our company before this. Before real estate, we did some clothing stuff, but we had some
Yeah.
stores, but that's just something that I always think about, and it's such a bummer that it happens.
I know. But you stood by what you believed in, and so you exited that company and you went to Title Guarantee. Is that
Yes.
correct? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. They were offering me an opportunity to build my desk, like really hit the ground hard and just cater, focusing on the local investor market, basically.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's awesome. So, what are some of the things that an investor should have
Ready.
lined up
Yes,
and ready?
that's-
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a better question.
Yeah. Brand new investors, by the way, are one of my favorites.
Oh, no way.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. They're always super excited
Yes.
to have a deal.
Yes.
I know how many phone calls, how many doors they've probably had to knock on, how
Yeah.
many drive-bys,
Hard
how
work.
many meetings, phone
Yeah.
calls just to get the contracts presented,
Yeah.
Right.
and then to have it fully executed and be able to open escrow. I understand
Yes.
that this is sometimes years in the making, right? And how many sacrifices they've had to make as individuals or as a family to be able to
Yeah.
dive into this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's some very simple things to be ready. Is number one, just make sure you have all of your sellers on the contract.
Okay.
Make sure you've pulled title to
Yeah.
verify who your sellers are.
yeah.
Right.
Make sure that you're actually speaking to the decision maker, and make sure you're not talking to a tenant
Yeah.
or
Right.
a
Yeah.
relative who's
Right.
not even on title.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the other thing too is we want to make sure that all of the parties are alive and well. Because if anybody has passed away, if anybody is mentally incapacitated, if anybody is not physically in Hawaii, overseas, or somewhere else. So yeah, let's just make sure we have all of our sellers at the table, that they've executed, or we have their contact information. Determine whether or not you're going to put any earnest money down, and when is it due. So is it due 24 hours after the contract is signed? Is it due within a week? Is it due after J1? How much is it? Or is there no earnest money?
Right. Is
So-
that a thing? Are there?
Is it there? It totally is a thing.
Oh, no way.
There are some contracts that I receive where there is no earnest money noted anywhere, which is completely fine. Just they have to keep in mind that technically escrow is not open until there is money on the table,
Right.
essentially.
Yeah.
So, we can be going through an entire escrow transaction
But-
with no money in it.
Wow,
we have.
that's crazy.
We have.
Yeah.
So technically, it's not legitimized until there's money submitted into escrow.
Technically, yes.
Yeah.
But we'll go through.
Yeah.
We're not going to
Yeah.
say we're not open until
Yeah.
we get your deposit.
Right.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so there's that. You want to have that clearly defined. And then they probably want to know, well, how do I drop it off? What form does it have to be in?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
bottom line is a personal check is fine as long as you're not doing like a 2-week closing.
Yeah.
We
Right.
need to make sure that the
It
funds
clears.
are
That it
good.
clears,
Yeah.
right?
So personal check is fine. If you're doing a purchase under an LLC, you want to make sure the check is coming from the LLC account.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have an LLC account and you're working with a lender, make sure you clear that with your lender first so that they understand why the initial deposit is coming from here and whether or not you have to replace the funds.
Yep.
And then basically, how do I get it into escrow, right? So
Yeah.
you can drop it off at any title guarantee branch, which is really nice. We have even offices on the neighbor islands.
Love that. Yeah.
So you can basically drop it off anywhere. Or you can wire it in.
Yep.
Please do not go to our bank and deposit it
Yeah.
over the counter because people have done that.
No
Really?
way.
It's very difficult to track down
Yeah.
and it just complicates it.
Yeah.
Let's put
Yeah.
it that way.
Don't go to the bank, their bank, and deposit it. We're
Yeah.
making that loud and clear.
You can drop it off at any title guarantee location.
Yes.
Or you can wire it, and you guys send wire instructions.
Yep.
Yep. I think I always go to the TG right here in Kailua.
You do.
Yeah.
And then I'm
that.
just like, and they give you a receipt. They
Yeah.
show when it was received,
Timestamp it.
who received it, and then they update your records on your
Yes.
end. Yeah.
If you are going to drop off the check before you've turned in your contract, just make sure on the check you have the property address at the very least. And then when you drop it off, if you could say, hey, this is going to be a new escrow for Pam Sato, that helps
Definitely.
a lot more because they'll know exactly who to send the copy of the check to.
Yeah.
So that's the basics of the earnest money.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you want to make sure you have your contract fully executed, right?
What does that mean? A fully executed? What
executed?
makes it fully executed?
Loosey-goosey terms, have your buyer and seller signed it, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am willing to open escrow, pre-open escrow, with a half-executed contract. So let's say you've signed it, your seller is traveling, but they verbally agreed. It's coming,
Yeah.
or maybe it's missing one of the parties' signatures.
Yeah.
Technically, it's not fully executed. We can get it down the road prior to closing. Just make sure you're following up on
You're following up
that.
and
Yeah.
turning it in. Yeah. Yeah.
Make sure it's a
Yeah.
legitimate situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I would say in terms of the contract itself, there are some things that help. If you're thinking from an escrow perspective, we deal with the money and the fees.
Yeah.
So one of the items that gets missed a lot of times is how are the fees being allocated? Is the buyer covering 100% of the closing costs or
Right.
seller?
Right.
Are they splitting it 50-50?
Yep.
Are they going to follow the traditional Hawaii contract splits, which is not 50-50?
What
Not
is it?
50-50,
It's
yeah?
not.
What is it?
Doesn't the seller... Oh, no, the buyer pays more, right? Or no?
Well, there are some fees, like conveyance tax, for example.
Yeah.
On the traditional Hawaii contract, the seller pays 100% of the conveyance tax, which
Okay.
can get pretty high.
Yes.
Right? As your
Yeah.
price point goes up, it's going to go up
Right.
Right.
exponentially.
Yes.
Escrow fee is split 50-50.
Okay.
The seller generally will pay for the attorney doc prep fee for the deed.
Yep.
Okay.
Title insurance, the owner's policy is split where the seller will pay 60% of the standard policy premium. The buyer will cover 40%. And if they want any inflated coverage, the buyer will cover that. If there is a loan policy involved, the buyer will cover 100% of that. And then recording costs traditionally are charged to the buyer. That's the general.
Yeah. The general.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that,
There are
that
some
was my
miscellaneous
question.
fees that come
There are
into play.
miscellaneous, which,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was under the impression that on a standard contract, like you just 50-50. So I mean, I'm
Yeah.
learning something here too. As investors, one of the things that we always do is we'll pay for closing costs, right? Like that's one
A
of
lot
our
of times,
When we're
yeah,
buying.
one of our
Yeah.
incentives to
Exactly.
purchase a house is, hey, look, we're gonna cover all the closing costs. So yeah, that's
I feel like
super
that's something
interesting.
that's not really talked about either. Is
Yeah.
that it's not just when you're dealing with realtors, there's commissions, but there's also escrow fees and closing
Yes.
costs. And then people are like, well, what are all these fees? You know what I
Yes.
mean? They don't
Yeah.
truly understand that there's all the things that you guys do, everything costs money.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to talk. So I know you're investor, like you have a big investor community, and that a lot of your files are investor files.
Mm-hmm.
Do you solely focus on investor stuff, or do you do the non-investing investor stuff too? Yeah.
I do non-investor stuff as
Okay.
well, like
Okay.
your regular traditional,
Yeah.
with usually 2 realtors on either side.
Yeah.
Right.
Refinance transactions, conventional and hard money. I will do a handful of REOs, maybe 1 or 2 foreclosures on a case-by-case basis, and a tiny commercial.
Oh, you do a little bit of commercial.
Tiny commercial.
Yeah.
But,
Tiny.
Yeah, so I have in the past, but Title Guarantee actually has a separate department, their own legal, their own title for that. So they prefer to keep it separate, which
Yeah.
I
That
completely
makes sense.
understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, you are literally one of the only escrow officers that we have come across that will do a lot of transactions. So we talked
Yep.
about hard money, but you also do assignments for like wholesalers, and
Yes.
also creative deals. Like we haven't talked
Yeah.
about creative. We have taken some of our creative deals elsewhere, like say the seller wants to close with a specific title company, and a lot of times we're like, we know it's not going to work, but
we'll
sometimes
try.
they have to go through it and then see that it's not going to work, and then we move them over to you. I know the reason behind the hard money, a lot of it is because like they're fearful, right? Or they don't totally understand. Is that the same thing with like assignments and creative transactions like sub to and seller finance? Why aren't they more widely done?
I can't really speak for the other title company positions because a lot of the wholesale, you've heard of the term double close.
Yep.
A lot of them came after I left First American, for example. So I
Got
really
it.
don't know the reasoning behind their policy. I do understand that it is kind of a company policy, is my understanding. So just in general, I would say it's just fearful, not really knowing how to manage
Navigate.
it, basically, because if as an escrow officer, you kind of need to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to fly blindly, and if there's nobody else in the company who is able to guide you, you could get yourself into a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
You could get
Yeah.
the company into a
Right.
lot of trouble.
Yeah, there's liability. You have
There's
to
a
make
lot of liability if you don't really know or understand the transaction, I feel.
Yeah.
So is it because there's a lack, from what I'm hearing from you, it's a lack of understanding of what those transactions really are and how they work. And if there was essentially more education and comprehension, they would probably be more inclined to figure out how to do them. But there's a lot of subject to seller finance, novation, creative strategies are the minority versus cash and conventional
Yes.
And
is the
traditional.
majority.
Traditional,
So it's like,
yeah.
why am I going to take time to learn a new skill
Exactly.
when this is my
Yes.
bread and butter?
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. It's the same thing with the hard money.
Yeah.
Theoretically is, why am I going to neglect this business in order to take the time to learn this new thing if it's not going to bring me the same amount as this already
Totally.
has,
Totally.
you know?
They're looking at their opportunity cost, and right now
It's
it makes
really, really
right. It makes
It's-
more sense
yeah.
for them to just do the traditional stuff. They don't
Yeah.
have to spend time learning this and stressing out over it if this business is doing so well.
Yeah.
You know?
No,
Yes.
totally.
Makes perfect
Yeah.
sense.
If from a business perspective, it makes 100% sense. What I wish more people would begin to think about and really try to understand is the houses that a lot of us investors are buying they don't qualify for traditional financing.
Exactly.
For a number of reasons,
Yep.
right? They're usually unsafe.
Yep.
and they don't meet the criteria in order to qualify with Chase or American Savings or whatever it is.
Yes.
So we have no other option or choice unless we're sitting on millions and millions and millions, which none of us are, to just deploy into all of our houses, right?
Yes.
We have to use hard money because those types of loans are catered specifically to us as investors that buy these very distressed, messed up, janky houses.
Yes.
And those messed up, janky houses usually are sitting vacant
Yep.
and are contributing to the lack of housing here in Hawaii.
Yes.
So we feel like it's our obligation, our responsibility to buy those homes if it can work.
Yep.
And put them back onto the market for Hawaii people to purchase.
It's part of the revitalization.
Exactly. You know?
I mean, if you look at Detroit, for example, how many of those homes are left totally in shambles, just completely abandoned, like blocks,
Yeah.
city
Blocks.
blocks
I know.
in Detroit.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they're coming in, they're rehabbing, revitalizing communities.
Exactly.
You know, and if we can do that here in Hawaii, I mean, we have so much limited space.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's critical that we do this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be these vacant, distressed properties when we have a lack of housing. You know?
Yeah.
It's kind of doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is, you know, you have a lot of situations where the owners are they're stuck. You know, things happen in life.
Yep.
It's not necessarily that they're irresponsible. It's just things happen, you know, and they get way underwater.
Yep.
If they go and speak to a regular realtor, for example, about, hey, I need to list my property. I need to get out of this. I'm way
I need help.
I can't pay my bills.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm living without electricity.
Right.
I've seen some. They have no cell phone service.
Oh,
Like
no
a lot
running
of
water.
them.
Yeah.
No, yeah, exactly. They're just stuck, basically. Stuck, paralyzed,
Yes.
if you will.
Yeah.
And because the property is not up to standard, a realtor will tell them, well, hey, I'd be happy to list it for you, but, you know, we have to fix this, and this.
Yeah.
I mean, they can't even afford to pay their electricity bill.
Let
How are they
alone-
going to
How are they going to put money into their house?
it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like that's where you guys come in.
Yeah.
You know,
We have
you
a
help them.
We have an escaped visitor.
He's coming in. That's
He has
good.
made a public appearance on Deals in Aloha because he escaped from his pen.
Oh, it's so
Okay, sit
He
down.
cute.
he probably woke up and then just.
And so
ran
funny.
in.
Oh, so cute.
Hey, buddy.
So cute.
Interruption.
Yes.
Sorry.
There's a
all
good
good.
commercial break.
But yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you guys will come in and you'll just, I mean, I've even seen some where they will actually advance them so that they can move on
Yeah.
or pay their bill so
Totally.
that they can get the lights turned back on.
Yeah.
They will front the money for whatever it takes to rehab, and then they'll turn around and flip it and
Yeah.
then help, you know, with the proceeds, you know, split it, not
Totally.
split it, but, you know,
Yeah,
Sure,
just
exactly.
to help them move on,
Yes.
you know, in a healthy way.
Exactly.
And at the same time, they're providing housing for a local market.
For a local,
Yeah.
new local family. So
so
that's
it's a win-win-win.
Exactly.
Win-win-win.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, if we can, all we're trying to do with this podcast is raise awareness on subject matter like that,
Yes.
and then highlight people that are doing really cool things in our local community. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yes, and you're one of them.
Yes, you are. So I want to ask you about the creative side just a little bit. How did you learn it? Like I'm like
She fell into it.
no, but seriously, like throughout the podcast, I'm hearing that like you're self-taught on a lot of things, and like, do you just figure things out? Because that's like a quality that I admire, right? Like
Yeah.
you put your mind to something and you can figure it out. Is that kind of how the creative stuff ended up happening?
I'm going to say yes. I'm going to go with yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I do not like to turn people away. I never like to tell people no. I want to give people options.
Yeah.
So I will kind of listen so that I make sure I understand what the situation is. And then depending on what it is, I'll go to my title officer or our legal advisor or my escrow manager and be like, hey, this is what we want to try and accomplish. Is there a way to get it done?
Yeah.
And a lot of times they come back with really good options that even I didn't think of.
Wow.
So that's why it's super exciting, because
Yeah.
each situation is unique in itself. I'm learning, and
Yeah.
at the same time I get that good feeling, the good vibes,
Yeah.
because I know they might not have been able to pull this off if they had gone
A different
somewhere
Right.
else.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what is the biggest or the hardest escrow you've had to navigate so far?
That's a hard
Which
question. Yeah.
which one sticks?
Nothing really.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. There's been some really difficult transactions. I think for me, it's more with personalities
Yeah.
than the actual challenges of the transaction itself. I mean,
Yep.
we do have challenging transactions, but because there's always a way. There's 9 times out of 10, I think there were like, I can count on one hand the amount that I've actually said, I'm sorry, there is
Like I
Can't
there's
do this.
no
Yeah.
option.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
You have to go and get title cleaned up first, or
Right.
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Work with an attorney to look for this probably deceased lender so
Right.
that we can get this lien
Yeah.
cleared, or
Right.
whatever it
Totally.
is, right?
Yeah.
Those do come up.
Yep.
Yeah.
All the time.
Totally.
I can perform miracles, but not every single miracle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
kidding.
Not
I know.
miracles
But,
every
yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I just.
Are there
What
any
about what about like just in general, anything in your career leading up to, like, what's the biggest struggle you've had to overcome? Is there anything that you've had to overcome? I mean, it sounds to me like it's like a personality thing, and then like you went from first American to first Hawaii and having to deal with those changes and stuff. But is there anything else?
I would say it's just internal.
Yeah.
As all of us go through as we grow, pushing myself, really pushing myself. Tristan and I were just talking earlier before we got started how we are actually both introverts.
Yeah.
So as much as I can turn it on when I need to, in my downtime, I actually prefer quiet time.
seclusion?
I love to be the person in the room that is just sitting and observing.
Yeah, I love that.
That's my natural, what I gravitate towards. So a lot of times, like doing podcasts, for example, I really have to push myself.
Yeah.
But I feel like, well, I've seen it. A lot of people post a lot of positive things on social media.
Yeah.
If you're not pushing yourself, if you are not uncomfortable, you are not growing.
Yeah.
And you've
Yeah.
become complacent.
Right.
And I'm not quite there yet, I don't feel like I'm ever going to be there.
I've noticed now you have a team, right? So what does that team look like? And then what has your position in your team now that you've built this support around you? What has that pushed you? What is your role now?
That's a great question. Although I would love to be in all places at all times, to be able to do everything for everyone, I've had to learn to let go and trust. So I was able to position some really talented escrow associates on my team. 2 of them I had worked with before. One, we had worked in the same company,
Right.
but just not, he wasn't with me on my desk per
Directly,
se.
yeah.
Right.
So it's basically we have one person who is kind of like the lead assistant. She kind of helps in the morning. We regroup. She makes sure where we need to be. And I kind of chime in on issues that I'm aware of, or communication that comes into me via phone or text, just to share with the group so we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
And we kind of set up our day first thing in the morning. Like, these are the top items that we need to make sure we address. This is what we're looking at. We always try to look at our transactions minimum 2 weeks out, so that we're not blindsided and we're not caught off guard.
Right.
Nothing falls through the cracks. So that would be Maya's position.
She's a rock star.
She is a rock
she's
star.
awesome.
She's so
Yeah.
Yes. She's so young.
Yeah.
But she carries herself. I swear, she's more mature than I am.
We all need those.
She has it together.
That's awesome.
Yes. And then there's Gordy, Gordon Apo. He is really great at servicing. Really good. He's also incredibly resourceful. And he's not afraid. He's not fearful to just dive in. A little bit scary sometimes, because sometimes I have to rein him in.
Yeah, whoa.
Whoa, okay, that's awesome that you did it, but okay, let's make sure that did you do X, Y,
Did
Z?
do this,
Yeah,
do it
yeah.
all correctly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Slow down
Yeah.
before we can speed up. Yeah.
And then there's Angia Kahanu, whom I've worked with. Actually, we were on the same team as assistants when I started off.
Yeah.
So I've known her for over 15 years now. As long as I've been in the industry, I've always known her. She is one of those tenacious people who don't mind picking up the phone for hours trying to track down a payoff, for example.
I love that.
Yeah. You will rarely find someone who actually wants to do that.
Yeah. Unheard of.
And when
Right.
you do keep them, you're like,
Exactly. She's my specialist. So 9 times out of 10, if we have something that we need to get a payoff, or we're trying to clear, or we need to get some documentation, clear a tax lien, child support lien,
You'll put her on
she's
it.
the one who will get it, and she gets it fast.
Wow.
I
That's
go
cool.
and I try, and I'm like, okay, Mama, I call her Mama.
yeah.
Yeah.
Can you try?
Can you
and
do this?
know, and
Yeah.
then I feel like an idiot, because by that afternoon she's already
She's
got
done
it,
already.
and I'm
And you're like,
Wow.
okay, wait, what did
like,
you
how
do?
did you?
Yeah, I know.
And she's like, oh, I just did it on. And I'm like, okay, you keep doing what
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
doing.
yeah. You're
Like,
you're good at that. I think you should keep doing that.
I always tell them, we all bring special gifts to the table.
Yes.
It's not like there's no prima donnas on our
No,
team.
no.
Everybody contributes. Everybody is equally valuable, because we can't close unless everybody does their part.
Right.
Yeah, so I would say my role is to go out and build the relationships
Yeah.
in the community, and then just be there to help structure, to make sure we're setting up the transaction so that it's successful.
Yeah.
I kind of review title just to make sure if there's anything that we need to get, everybody is aware. I might not be the one that's actually doing the legwork, but
Yeah.
at least I'm making sure that
You're like big
it's
picture.
getting done.
Oversight.
Yeah, like the
Yeah.
over.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, I mean, I feel like you're more in the leadership role over your team. And so what are you doing to work on your leadership skills?
That is probably that's been one of the biggest challenges.
There you go.
I
Yeah.
feel.
I can
am,
relate.
By
Right.
nature, I'm A-type personality. I am a control freak. I'm
Yeah.
a neat freak. I'm semi-OCD.
Yeah.
I like structure. I like organization. I like things to be done my way, or
Yeah.
I like the quality of our service to be done a certain way.
Yeah.
And one of the challenges for me was figuring out what motivates each person, because I learned that what may motivate me does not translate to Maya, Gordy, or Mama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's their reason, their why
Is different.
is completely different.
Totally different.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, okay, take a step back, analyze what speaks to these people.
right.
And then how do I communicate to them? Because they all like to be, everybody's love language is different, right?
Totally.
They say. So
Yeah.
some, you can just tell them straight, point blank, I need this. You're not, whatever. And they're fine,
Yeah.
Others, you kind of got to, kind
Teeter,
of
massage.
massage
Moves
it.
them,
Yeah, a little.
It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna lie. it's been a learning curve because this is not my first team. I was lucky enough when the escrow officer left, when I was a brand new escrow officer, like I inherited his team. And I had to learn that you can't be an ogre. You
Right.
can't be a commander. It's not the military.
Right.
Everybody's not going to automatically fall in line. They will resent you, and
Yeah.
then you really won't be able to get them to perform.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's all about learning how to help each person reach their potential.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I love that. She asked that question because she's going through this very thing right now
Oh,
with the
yeah.
leadership
With
thing.
building
Yeah.
our team.
You guys share
and-
so much in common though, because she's the same way, control freak. I'm allowed to
Yes.
tell you that, but she knows.
I acknowledge.
Yeah,
It's
control
no
freak.
secret.
And then and for both of us though, like nobody can do it as good as we can do it, right? And that's
Yeah.
like a hard thing to switch off in your head, especially when
It
you're
is.
building a team,
Yes.
because there's a fine balance, right? Like, okay, if you want to grow, you need to learn how to let go.
Delegate
And
Yeah.
good
nobody,
is better than perfect.
Good is better than perfect, because nobody is gonna have as much passion and love your business as much as you're going to, right?
Exactly.
But you
Yeah.
gotta create a space where they can get damn close to it. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
that's a struggle. It's hard.
It is. And it's through all of those things that you talked about, figuring out what makes them tick, what's important to them,
Yes.
what they respond to, what their superpower is, you know, all those things. And it's hard when you're running a business and there's all these to-dos and
Yeah.
people are relying on you, outside people are relying on you to make sure that we're moving in that direction, for you to have to actually stop and pour into someone else before you can keep going.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge for sure. But I know that it's the most important thing if you're going to achieve at a high level
Yes.
at the next phase of where you're going.
Exactly. Yeah. It's almost like when you take the time to learn a new skill, basically. But it's going to pay off in dividends if you can get it right and you take the time to invest,
Yeah.
to build.
Yeah.
Because you kind of need that foundation in order to get bigger. Because
Right.
there's only one of you.
Right.
There's only one of Kamohai.
Right.
And you can't, you have a young family.
Yeah.
You cannot afford to just exhaust yourselves.
Right.
I've seen you
Yeah.
exhausted.
Yes.
I've seen you.
Yeah.
And you're just like tapped out.
Yeah.
And you have no choice
Yep.
but to just keep going because
Right.
it once you get on, like everybody wishes,
Yep.
but what you forget is once you're on, there is no getting off.
No.
Yeah.
It is 24/7,
Yep.
365 days a year.
Yep.
And it's all on you
All
because
on
there's
you.
people counting on you.
Yes.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of people don't realize when you're an escrow officer, when you're an independent investor,
Yeah.
when you're a mentor, when you're a boss, business owner, it's a huge responsibility that you're constantly carrying with you in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
There's no
it's-
turning that off.
There is no turning it off.
Yeah.
You're in the shower.
Yeah.
The moment you wake up,
Yeah.
Yep.
it's the first thing. If I'm sure you're thinking about your kids, maybe, and then
And then it's that.
and then it's that,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just. But yeah, that's why we are passionate, right? Because
Yes.
you have to be passionate about
You
it.
have to.
Totally.
We're passionate about
Yeah.
people, or passionate
Yeah.
passionate about missions, and so
Yeah,
yeah, trying to get people and build that together with them, I think is the
Yes.
mission
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
so I feel like you kind of need to be able to identify personalities and what's going to work with you, but you can't do that until you really know yourself. You need to know
Yep.
yourself,
Yep.
and you need to be honest.
Right.
That's another thing I learned
Yes.
is you got to know who you are and you have to be okay with just being who you are.
Yes.
Don't try and be someone that you think everybody wants you to
Wants.
be because
Right.
they will see through you.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
be your authentic leader, whatever
be
that
your
is.
authentic self.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to give someone bad news.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to set standards. or what the expectations are. I really struggled with setting expectations, and I would just end up doing it myself.
Yeah.
And I would
Just do it.
complain to
Yeah.
myself.
Right.
But I had to take a step back and think, okay, what kind of leader would I want? You know, how can I run without knowing what my goals are? What are my expectations?
Yeah.
Not having that check-in, like, am I doing okay?
Yeah.
Are you guys looking for something else? Like, that's what I would want. So
Right.
I have to be willing to provide that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I
'Cause-
love all this.
yeah, it wasn't about just being the nice person that everybody loves. That's not what being a good leader is.
No,
and I
it's
learned
not.
that the hard way.
Right.
It's not about being everybody's best friend or being an awe-inspiring guru role model. No, leadership is completely different.
Yeah.
Yes.
Totally.
Sometimes you have to be willing to be the bad guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Speaking to my soul right
I
now.
know. She's literally going through it right now.
I know, I
So,
love
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel your pain.
I know. I love it.
So speaking of goals, like what are your goals? Like what
Where
moving
do you
forward?
Yeah, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Or 10 years, whatever it is.
It's kind of funny you ask that because I have been asking myself that question a lot lately because I kind of had, before I came over to Title Guarantee, I kind of had like a 10-year exit plan. Like, okay, I can't keep doing this forever. It's really hard. It's
Yeah.
die hard. You know, I'm
Yeah.
getting older.
Yeah.
And then I was just gonna, exit
Yeah.
and maybe go do something else.
Yeah,
And,
totally.
but then when I came over, I had this vision. I want to build this residential investments team. I want a place where I can groom people to becoming escrow officers
Yeah.
and grow my team exponentially from there. So basically, you'll have more of me to go around where we can service more clients.
Right.
And then now we have this huge downturn in the market.
I know. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And now there isn't a lot of business to
Yeah.
go around.
Yeah.
We're fighting for every single deal, basically, to survive.
Right.
Yeah.
And I have a pretty big team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, okay, take a step back. What do we need to really focus on? How can I help them by helping myself, essentially? So we've
Right.
had to reorganize again. It's
Yeah.
always a constant transition.
Yeah.
Always,
Right.
depending on what the market is. So I feel like I'm rambling.
No?
No. You're
Yeah.
good. You're good. So good. I
You're in
I feel like
transition.
that's.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
in
yeah.
transition.
Yep. I mean.
So immediate answer is I would honestly have to say my goal for the next 5 years is just to be able to survive in this market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll just have to see. There's so much unknown out there.
Right.
I draw so much inspiration though from you two. And some of the other players
Yeah.
Yeah.
in our Ohana.
Yeah.
Right.
And I've considered, I'm like, gosh, they're so young. They're so brave to go out on a limb and just throw everything into this. I'm like, I wonder if I could do it. I wonder if I have the stomach for it anymore. Do I have the gumption? I don't know. I need to discuss more and digest.
Yeah.
You just need to do one. You just got to try one and
I think.
see.
I think 100% you got it in you.
Of course you do.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
I have all the faith in the world. I know you could do it. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Time will tell.
Only
Yeah.
I
time
just-
will tell.
Trust in the Lord, and
Yeah.
if when it's time, it'll happen. Or
He opens doors and then he
He
closes
does.
others. It's just
Exactly.
your responsibility to walk through it.
Like what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Yep.
You got to be able to recognize and embrace.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
sometimes you just have to trust and just go with it.
Yeah.
I mean,
This house is a prime example of that.
I know.
Right?
Can we share the story about
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
house?
Yeah.
Totally.
This is my first time here.
Uh-huh.
I've handled escrow for this house 3 times now. I think we talked
Yeah.
about,
Yep.
right? Like
Yeah.
I've never
3
seen
times.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know, based on your testimony, when we were at the mastermind event that this is actually the dream house. And you came to the realization that it fell out of escrow. You're in this situation because God is telling you this is actually everything that you asked for.
Yeah.
He opened the door and he allowed everything to work for us, not to us, right? Opened the door. It was just our responsibility to walk through it.
Walk through it.
You know? And he doesn't do it how you think he's going to do it. He does it his way.
Yeah.
And in the last final hour, because we were supposed to close.
We were.
Yeah.
On
We were
this
right
house.
there.
We were.
right
And we
there.
were going to make the most money we had ever made.
It
We
was.
were.
It
on
was
this one, yeah.
substantial.
Yeah.
It was $500,000. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if people ever make that flipping houses. It was like this amazing once in a lifetime deal, but now it truly is a lifetime deal. You
Yeah.
know, so
Yeah.
that's the power of walking
Magic.
through that door.
Yes.
Our son says that all the time.
Yeah.
It's magic.
I'm like, he's like, I always ask him how he does that, and he tells me magic all the time.
It's
my son.
magic.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so how many files are you guys doing on average? Like last year
It's different.
or this year?
last
I know
year.
this year the market's shifted, but on average.
Yeah. So at any given time,
Yeah.
I probably have anywhere from 100 to 160 active files at any given time.
Wow.
Yeah, that's wild.
Closings, I would say on average, conservatively, we're in the like 35 to 40 range
Yeah.
for transactions that have closed each month. Openings kind of slowed down a little bit. So maybe
Right.
we're like in the high 20 to low 30 mark
Yep.
for openings.
Yep.
Unfortunately, the cancellation rate has really increased.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, it's just so sad. You
Yeah.
know, you have these buyers, what they qualified for even 3 months ago, because the interest rates have almost doubled.
Right.
They're completely not
They're priced
qualified.
out.
They're
Yeah,
priced
they
out.
don't-
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, everything happens for a reason, right? And we just
Right.
have to trust it.
Totally.
And,
Yeah.
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 That's interesting. I know, because I mean, obviously, everything that's happening in the market is affecting everyone, and sometimes in
Yes.
different ways. But for us, we're seeing the same thing on the sell side, right? Houses are
Yes.
sitting on the market for a lot longer in specific areas, especially because of that very reason. An interest rate increase of 1% can literally make a buyer not afford that monthly payment anymore, right?
Yeah.
In these certain price points. So
Yeah.
it is crazy what's happening. I do feel blessed that we're in Hawaii. I know some other
Yeah.
Other
markets
markets.
are getting slammed
Yes.
like way worse,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, than we are. And so I don't know, it's a uncertain time, and I feel like
Yes.
for some investors that just got started within the last year and a half, 2 years, they're like tripping out
Yeah.
because their normal was 1 week on the market, sell for over ask, right?
Yes.
It is not that anymore, like we were talking about at Deals
Yes.
on Aloha. But
Right.
yeah, I think what's gonna
It's back to pre-COVID market.
pre-COVID.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think
Yes.
what's gonna happen is we're gonna see the people that have the perseverance still last through
Yes.
this time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you have solid principles and solid foundations, and you're doing the right thing, then you'll be okay. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We will. We
Yep.
will.
Yes.
I have a fire round of questions for you. You ready?
Yeah, this is how we end it.
These are easy. Super easy.
Okay.
Why do you like working with investors? Or what do you like work? What, you know what I mean? What do you like about working with investors, or why?
The investor market, they're so real. They're so genuine. I'm comfortable. I can be myself. And again, it's a reciprocal relationship.
Yeah.
You know, I'm helping them. I feel good about it in return. They're coming back,
Yeah.
becoming more successful business-wise. It's just a really nice symbiotic relationship. I feel where it's more, our relationship is deeper than just
A
I
transaction.
have a power trip over you because I'm bringing you my business. What are you
Right.
going to do for me? It's not that kind of a relationship.
Right.
It's different.
Yeah.
And it's something very special. Again, I'm super blessed to have fallen into it, basically. Yeah.
I love that.
Love that.
I love
Perfect.
that. We asked that. What type of transactions do you not like to do and why?
Are there any?
I don't think there are any. I know that there are some really tough, challenging ones. Again, we talked about personalities.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any transactions I don't like doing. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, let me flip it. What's your favorite type of transaction to do?
Well, the ones I close with you guys, obviously.
Nice.
Great answer.
Great answer. Yes. Perfect answer.
That's so funny. There's this concept of memorandums of understanding. Or putting a memorandum on a house. Biggs, you gotta go down. To basically,
He's licking my
I know.
Is he?
He's like, I want to come back.
Hi, honey.
Where you can cloud title. If you can place it on the property, you can cloud title. If in fact, when you have a property under contract, the seller goes and sells it to somebody else.
Yes.
Are those legitimate in Hawaii? Do they work? Placing a memorandum on a property. Do they work here?
Are they legitimate? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Can an owner go to court and have it completely expunged with a judge? Probably.
Yeah.
But from a title insurance perspective, anything that is recorded on title is creating a cloud on title, essentially. So we have to vet everything.
Yeah.
Because ultimately the title insurance company is the one that's going to end up being on the hook
Right.
if the buyer suffers a loss.
Yeah.
So they're going to look at that and they're going to want to address it. 9 times out of 10, I can tell you they're going to want to address it. We've had transactions where the sellers themselves have placed a cloud on title.
Why?
My understanding is there was somebody who came in, did a seminar maybe about 8 years ago, who told people that by doing this, you can avoid foreclosure.
I've heard of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they went and they put some sort of a common law, federal common law claim
Yep.
is what they recorded themselves on their own property.
Yeah.
We have to make sure that this is the funny part.
Yeah.
This is where the irony kicks in because they go and they file this without a court case being opened. They literally just file a document and record it. They now have to hire an attorney to open a case, turn around, and have it dismissed. So
For
that
something they did.
can get it
Clear to sell.
off of the record and have
Wow.
it released from title.
That's wild.
My God.
Yeah. So from a title insurance perspective, we're going to look at everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that
sense.
leads to my next question is
Yeah.
we talked about kind of what title does, but why is having title insurance so important?
Well, would you pay me $700,000 for the keys to my home directly?
I mean, I would probably.
Okay.
Maybe.
Not me,
Yeah. But somebody.
a stranger on the street. Would you give that person $750,000 on average for the keys to their home?
Absolutely not.
with some a little bit more digging.
Right. And that's where the title insurance kicks in because we're going to do the research to make sure that they actually own the property, in fact,
Yeah.
and make sure that it's free and clear when you take ownership of it.
Right.
Without title insurance, you're also open to any unknown
Yeah.
type of loss.
Yeah.
You know, some sort of I don't know. I couldn't really tell you because I don't get involved in the claims.
Yeah.
There are so many unknowns.
Yeah.
So
You know?
somebody, if you went through escrow and you got title insurance and you, so therefore you have clear title, it transferred into your hands. You're good to go. If somebody came out of the woodworks from 20 years ago
Yeah.
and is like, oh no, I have ownership rights in this property, or I had a lien on there. Is that now, because you got title insurance, what would that do for the owner if that situation happened?
So they can open a title claim. Usually, if the title company determines that it is a valid claim, they will cover attorney's expenses to fight it. If their owner suffers any kind of a monetary loss as a result of the claim, the title insurance company will, just like any insurance company,
Exactly.
you know, like hazard insurance, they're going to come forward usually with some sort of compensation to help the owner recover their losses.
Yeah.
And that's why having title insurance is so important, because in the event that
Yeah.
you bought that $700,000 house and you didn't get title insurance and
Yes.
somebody did come out of the woodworks, you have to cover all that and you're on your own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is a settlement statement?
Settlement statement is basically a summary of all of the closing costs. So everything coming in and going out of escrow in terms of fees, charges, the consideration. It's kind of like a bank statement per se of all of your credits and debits.
That's good.
Okay.
We had a question about a blind HUD. Is that
Yes.
common practice for both buyers and sellers to have blind HUDs?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
So basically, the buyer will only see the buyer's side, the seller will only see the seller's side.
Got it.
Usually, the only party that's not escrow who sees both sides is the lender. That's it. And the only reason why, my understanding, the lender would want to see it is they want to make sure that there's nothing going on the seller's side, like no kickbacks.
Discrepancies,
Right.
any weird stuff that's
Yeah.
not recorded.
Exactly.
Got it.
Got it.
What is conveyance tax?
Conveyance tax is basically something that the state of Hawaii charges for the transfer of ownership,
Okay.
essentially.
Yeah.
So it's based upon the sales price. It's on a sliding scale. And whether or not your buyer intends to be an owner occupant affects the rate in addition to the price range.
Got it.
That's interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
rate changes whether or not it's owner occupied.
Yes. So if the buyer intends to be an owner occupant, the rate is slightly lower.
Interesting.
But then you have to be in the property do you have to disclose how long you're in the property to have that be applicable? You know what I mean? Or is there a gray area with that?
I think it's pretty gray. I don't know anybody out there whose job it is to actually go out and
enforce
verify.
that?
Right?
Yeah, I know.
Right?
You never
Yeah.
know.
Right.
I have a quick one.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of fellow investors all over the United States. And when I talk to them about escrows in Hawaii, one of the things that is like a major difference is the fact that we have to fund our escrow 2 days before we actually close. Are we the only state that has to do that? Do you know?
I'm not exactly sure if we're the only state.
Yeah.
I think on the West Coast, we are unique
Yeah.
in that sense.
That's so crazy. Do you know why that's the
So
case?
yeah, it's based on Hawaii's good funds law. It's a law.
Yeah.
It's a state
okay.
law where escrow needs to make sure that they have valid funds in escrow 2 business days before recording. Yeah.
Got it.
So it's
a law.
It's a law, and it's very important that all parties, especially if you're working with a hard money lender that does not know that
Yes.
and doesn't do
In
a lot
Hawaii.
of business in Hawaii,
Yes.
that they cannot fund the day of escrow. They have to
Correct.
fund, or the day that the escrow is supposed to close. They have to fund 2 days prior.
Yes.
And it has to be drilled home, because I can't tell you how many times we've worked with hard money lenders that aren't local.
not, yeah.
And they're like, what are you talking about? Yes,
I
funds
still
are on the
have-
way.
I still have
funds
2
are on the
days
way.
to
Funds are on the
close.
way. We're
Yeah.
like, no, you have to fund 2 days prior, or else I have to kick into my unilateral right to extend.
Yes.
You know, they
Yeah.
don't get it.
Yeah.
So you heard common law, Hawaii common law.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a law in Hawaii. Nice.
What is the other fees that you can pay, like HARPTA and FARPTA?
FERPTA.
FERPTA. I always call it.
FERPTA?
I call it FARPTA. Yeah.
So, HARPTA and FERPTA have to do with capital gains, essentially. The U.S. and the state want a way of capturing capital gains taxes. The FERPTA will apply for any non-U.S. taxpayer who's
Got it.
selling a property at a gain. HARPTA is for Hawaii. Any non-Hawaii resident not filing as a Hawaii taxpayer is subject to a withholding, essentially, is what it is.
Right.
So basically for FERPTA, it's 15% of your sales price.
Got it.
Not your net.
Wow.
It's your
Wow.
sales price.
Yeah.
Right off the top.
Right.
And then 7.25% for HARPTA. And it's a withholding. So if you happen to be looking at a property where your owner is actually from the mainland, not a Hawaii resident, or let's say it's not a Hawaii trust, for example, you want to make sure that they're aware that there's going to be this taken right off the top
Yeah.
when they're factoring in
all their
how
costs.
much are we going to get from the sale
Yeah.
immediately. Yeah.
We had to learn that through trial by fire.
Yeah.
We actually dealt with a seller that was in Florida, and he had to deal with HARPTA, and that was something we had to navigate. But
Yep.
it would have been a lot easier if I knew about it beforehand and could
Yes.
educate and explain.
Yes.
Because sometimes that's all it is setting the proper expectations
Exactly.
with the seller
Yep.
and informing them what it is. So you said it's a withholding. So
Yeah.
it eventually will get released to them if they file their taxes. Is that how it works? Or is
Or-
it automatically get taken from them? Do you know?
So they can apply for an early refund or they can file next year.
Yeah.
And the state will determine, I guess, based on any capital gains amount and their individual taxable circumstance.
Totally.
Yeah.
If they're going to see any of it come back or
Got
not.
it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Nice.
Any other questions?
I'm good.
I feel like those are good, pretty good
Yeah,
ones.
those are the good ones.
Yeah.
Anything that you want to leave with the audience? Majority of our audience are investors, either
Yes.
experienced or just getting started.
Yeah. I mean, I love working with investors, green, seasoned. I love educating people. I feel very blessed to have evolved over time. And I have a wealth of knowledge that I'm always happy to share, problem solve, try and set you up for success. So just, if you have a deal that you're interested in, and whether you're just getting started or not, just reach out. I mean, even
Yeah.
if the escrow ends up somewhere else, it's okay because I know I'm going to catch you on the flip side.
That was
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
And it's so true. So where can people find you? What's the best way for people to reach out?
I'm going to say the best way to reach me is through my email. So it's pam.sato@tghawaii.com.
Love
There you
that.
go.
I'm on Facebook. If you're on social media, some people have actually reached out to me via Messenger,
Nice.
and I'll respond that
Yep.
way.
Awesome.
You can contact Tristan and Kamohai. They
Yep.
can forward my
Yep.
V card.
Yep.
All the time.
Yeah.
I have a QR code, which I haven't quite figured out how to download yet, but I will.
Yeah.
If you figure it out, we can put all of this information in the comments.
It'll be there.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
below on YouTube. So, yeah, that's so awesome.
Thanks for coming and sharing your story and sharing all the knowledge that's in that brain of yours, because you teach us something with every transaction we go through.
100%. Yeah. If you guys are not using Pam, you need to definitely use her. And yeah, it was an honor having you on. We, like I said many times, think of you as our team member and more like family than just anything else, right? So, an honor. We love you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you guys.
Peace.
My honor.
Choo.
It's all good. Get paid, get paid, blow up like